Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is the 6th Google Hangout of the Pixel Project's Read for Pixels campaign. This is the second annual International Women's Day edition of this Read for Pixels campaign. My name is Anusha Kandasivam. I am your moderator for today. Through Read for Pixels, the Pixel Project is collaborating with 11 award-winning and best-selling female authors to raise awareness about violence against women and to raise funds for our Celebrity Male Role Model Pixel Reveal campaign. The aim is to raise $1 million. The funds will be shared between the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence and the Pixel Project, so we can both keep up our efforts to end violence against women. Now, I'll be telling you about a little bit more about the Read for Pixels campaign and all the exclusive author goodies we have a bit later. If you want to find out more about the Pixel Project, you can go to thepixelproject.net. All right, so we have a very special guest today. It's best-selling fantasy author whose acclaimed books include The Song of the Lioness Quartet, The Immortals Quartet, and so many more. We have today Tamora Pierce. Hi, Tamora.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being with us. I'm sure all your fans are so excited.
I'm kind of excited myself.
Okay, so Tamora is here she'll be doing a reading and then we will have a discussion in the Q&A session. But before we do that, I have to address you guys, the fans. Now, you guys have been so great and you've been donating so much to us. The Pixel Project has set up a stash of goodies as perks for our donors at Indiegogo. And Tamora has donated some really cool stuff. And these have been snapped up like almost immediately. So we want to say thank you so much to all Tamora Pierce fans. You guys, because of you guys, we nearly reached our halfway mark. We're almost at our $5,000 goal. Okay, so I'm going to read all your names out. 16 fans have donated to get the Turtle pin set. So these are Anna Good, Ashella Johnson, Ava Wilson, Carly McCarthy, Echo Martin, Hannah Werner, Jessie Pershing, Kirsten Sharnitsky, Kate Eyre, Katie Fiorina, Monica McCurry, Rachel E. Carter, Tiffany Lynn, Tiffany Tedders, Piana Nelson, Zach Schmidt. Thank you guys so much. Now, 2 fans have donated to get signed and personalized hardcover copies of the Immortals set, and these are Gabriela De Pesa and Christina Sardina. And 1 fan donated to get the Immortals Books Plus pin set, which is Mel Hart, who's all the way from Australia. 1 fan donated to get the signed and personalized hardcover Alana set, who is Tiffany Lynn. And 2 fans donated to get the Alana Books Plus pin set. And these are Catherine Grunwald and Sif San Jensen, all the way from Denmark. So thank you so much. And Tamara would like to say thank you too.
Yes, thank you so much for your generosity and for turning out. This is a really cool thing you're doing, and I hope you all know that your contributions and your support mean a great deal to girls and women worldwide, and to me.
Yeah. And guys, there are much more fantastic goodies on our from other Read for Pixel authors such as Claudia Gray and Kelly Armstrong, and Nalini Singh and Carrie Arthur that are still available. And if you want to get your hands on those things, you can go to our Indiegogo page. I'll tell you how you can do that a bit later. But right now, this is what you guys have been waiting for. Tamara is doing a reading. And then there will be a live discussion in the Q&A session. A lot of you have already been putting in your questions. So if you guys want to, whoever doesn't know how to put in your questions, let me tell you. If you're watching on Google Hangout, you type your question on, there's a box on the right-hand side of your screen. You type your questions in there and they will appear and I will read them out to Tamora. And everyone else can see them too. So everybody knows what you're going to say. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can still type your questions in the comment section underneath the video, but you guys have to be logged on to Google to do this. Now, there are already so many questions, which is great. Now, what you guys should do, if you see a question that you want to be answered, you should upvote it. So when you upvote the questions, they go up to the top of the page, and I'll read those ones out first, and Tamara can answer them for you. Okay. So now Tamora will be reading an excerpt from The Protector of the Small series. It's awesome. Do you want to just get right into it, Tamora?
Okay. There we go. I ask you to forgive my voice. I had surgery in January and it went in through my throat, so I'm still getting over that, so I sound weird. This is from Paige, and it's an incident that takes place while Cal is studying with her friends in the library, and one of the sparrows, the lame Peg, comes squawking in for her to warn her that there's something going wrong. So Cal follows Peg out into the courtyard that is right outside her own room. Then a muffled curse, furious sparrow chatter, and the sound of a tussle reached her ears. "You'll pay for that trick, wench," someone growled. "Call these birds off." Cal's instinct was to dash out and halt whatever was going on, but Lord Wilden's training gripped her hard. Fighting the urge to run, she leaned carefully around the open door, moving slowly. A quick movement would attract the eye of anyone in the courtyard. Her open wooden window was just 10 feet away. Vincent stood there, grappling with Lalassa. Lalassa is Cal's maid, and Vincent is the squire who has had problems with Cal in the past. From the wreckage of the sewing basket on the ground, Cal guessed Lalassa had been working in the window seat when Vincent came by. Now he fought to keep a hand over her mouth while her fingers scrabbled over his arm, looking for tender places to pinch. The sparrows attacked furiously, making Vincent duck their claws as he tried to wedge Lalassa's hands under his free arm. He was lucky the sparrows were half blind at night, or they could have damaged him badly. As it was, he bled from a dozen peck marks on his face. White fury blazed in Cal's heart. She stalked forward, battling to keep her feelings in hand, as she said coldly, "Unhand my maid." Lalassa's eyes widened. Peg, a cautious bird, fled Cal's shoulder for the safety of the room. The sparrows attacking Vincent did the same. Vincent half turned to look at her, still holding Lalassa. Cal could see the furrowed gouges of a woman's fingernails down the older boy's face. "If I were you, lump, I'd walk away right now." He used the nickname she rarely heard these days. Cal didn't argue. Pivoting on her right foot, she furled her left leg up to her inner thigh and snapped the foot out. Rather than shatter Vincent's kneecap, she hit just above it, where the thigh muscle narrowed. He lurched, knocking Lalassa against the window frame, then let go. Lalassa scrambled back inside Cal's room. Cal took another step toward Vincent, doubling her fists. For the first time, she could understand how someone in a rage might do murder. "How dare you touch an unwilling woman?" she asked. He swallowed and took another step away from her, unable to rest any weight on the leg she kicked. "You're wrong, Mindalun," he said, licking his lips nervously. "The wench has been eyeing me for weeks. They all do it, bed men to earn extra coin over their wages." "Liar!" Kel slapped him. Last year, Vincent had been almost a hand taller than she was. Now she was a scant inch shorter, and her build was more solid. Vincent was gangly, and he exercised only in the practice courts. "I know her, and I know you. Those scratches alone condemn you." She slapped him again. He had to challenge her. No knight could allow anyone to strike him without a fight. When he did, she would teach him a few lessons, then to turn him in to Lord Wilden. Wilden is the training master. Vincent backed up another step. He was in the wrong. By palace law, the maids were to be left alone. Violators were brought before the chamberlain. In chivalry, Servants were under a master's protection and could not be interfered with unless the master gave permission. No one would argue with Cal's dueling over this. "You will regret your treatment of me," Vincent said. His voice shook. His face was pale and sweaty around its scratches. "My family is powerful at court." Cal advanced until they were inches apart. "You are a coward," she told him, soft-voiced. "You knew you could frighten her. That's why you picked her. What kind of knight preys on serving girls? Where is your honor?" "Just because I won't brawl with you doesn't mean I have no honor," he blustered. I refuse to get in trouble over a wench who is no better than she should be." Kel lifted her hand to slap him again. Vincent flinched, raising his arm to protect his face. He didn't run only because she had backed him against the wall. She turned away, disgusted. "I'm reporting this," she said, striding toward the courtyard door. "My lady, no!" cried Lalassa. She lunged out of the window to grab Kel's sleeve. "Don't tell!" She wiped her eyes. "They'll talk until I've no reputation. That's how things are in Servants' Hall." She hung on to Kel with both hands and lowered her voice. "Nobles can make a girl's life a misery. They always do. Please don't report this." Kel wanted to argue, but Lalassa made sense. As Kel had just seen, she couldn't be everywhere. Who could say an enemy wouldn't lie in wait for Lalassa in places that Kel could not be? Still, Kel owed her maid loyalty and protection. "He must be reported," she told Lalassa quietly. "He'll do it again." "Please, my lady," begged Lalassa, "put yourself in my shoes. You'll get me in trouble. His kind can make it hard for servants. He speaks to his mother, who speaks to the chamberlain, who speaks to a steward, who puts my uncle out of work. How will you know it was done? How will you know it even came because of this? In 2 weeks you'll be gone, and Uncle Gower and I will still be here. Listen to me." Kel looked for Vincent. He'd stolen away. She tried to still her mind, to think. She certainly knew of nobles who forced themselves on serving women. No one put a halt to it. Within their own fiefdoms, nobles could do as they pleased. Even the priestesses of the goddess, sworn to protect women and girls from just this kind of thing, might hesitate to offend a lord. Vincent's family was connected to powerful houses throughout the realm. The saying was that if anything was needed, Genliths would supply it. When all else was said and done, Kel would be gone in 2 years, to serve whatever knight would take her for a squire. She would be hard put to defend Lalassa and Gower then. Lalassa sensed that Kel was not about to charge after Vincent. She relaxed her hold on Kel's arm. "If I'd been on my feet, I could have done something," she commented, and blew her nose. "He had me all twisted around. I could hardly get at him." Kel looked at her and remembered what she had seen. Lalassa's hands groping for a nerve, any nerve, in Vincent's imprisoning arm, and the bloody furrows on Vincent's face. "I am so proud of you," she said warmly, patting Lalassa's shoulder. "He's going to hurt for a long time. He won't dare take those marks to a healer." "And I'd like to see him explain the scratches to Lord Wilton," she thought. "I don't know if I could have done as well from that position." She inspected Lalassa. "Did he hit you? Hurt you in any way?" Lalassa made a face. "I've bruises where he grabbed me. He would have gone to hitting sooner or later. They all do." Kel stared at her, appalled. Lalassa turned her face away. "My dad, my brothers all hit their women. But Uncle Gower told me the king's palace was a fine place to work. And so it is. I couldn't ask for kinder friends than Tian and Uncle. It's just..." She shrugged. No place is perfect. Kel rubbed her temples. Use the bruise balm, she suggested. You won't need a lot. She turned. Lalasa grabbed her arm again. You're not, she began, eyes wide. Kel smiled grimly. I won't report him, but I have to make sure he doesn't forget. Lalasa's eyes searched Kel's face. At last she released her mistress. And later that evening, Kel's talking about she comes back and she finds Lalasa crying. She says, maybe I should report this after all. It's not right letting him off when you're so scared. It's not that, Lalasa replied, shaking her head and sitting up straight. She wiped her eyes on her sleeve. Not that much anyway, she sniffed. I never knew anybody who'd fight for me. Never. When my a man hurt me when I was little, and my parents said I lied. He was more important to them. But you faced down a noble for me. Kel looked down, hiding shock and fury. Lalasa's own brother had hurt her, and her parents had done nothing? They'd as good as told their daughter that she didn't matter. At last, when she could trust her voice, Kel cleared her throat and said, Vincent's not much of a noble. But I knew you would do something if you found out. Lalasa clung to one of Kel's hands. Since I've come to your service, I've never felt so safe. Well, it's nothing to cry over, Kel said. Lalasa chuckled and wiped her hands again. Kel took a deep breath. Are you going to be able to sleep now? She asked. Yes, forgive me, Kel replied. I'm sorry I woke you. You didn't. Kel got to her feet. I was awake. But you should sleep. All the sewing you do these days, you've earned your rest. And you haven't, I suppose, Lalasa teased. Sleep well, Lalasa. Thank you, my lady. As Kel reached the dressing room door, she heard her maid say, quietly but firmly, I knew you would come.
Thanks for that, Tamora.
Now I can take the reflecty glasses off. Show you my nice raccoon eyes.
Oh no, you look great. So that was very intense. And it brings up a lot of questions about reporting incidents of reporting your attacks and even bystander intervention. Do you think that your readers can learn something that you put in your book?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Are you hearing an echo?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, sounds better now. All right, so I was just saying that there was a very intense scene, and it brings up a lot of questions about, being attacked because you're a woman, and bystander intervention. So if you see somebody being, something like this happening, should you go and help them out and, encourage them to report the incident and things like that? So what do you think that your young readers can learn from this kind of scene?
I think they should consider the dangers first to themselves. I think the first thing they should do is call the police if they trust them. If they think the police will do right, call for help. You can get more with a group of people saying stop that than just one person by yourself. But if there's only you, and if you have a telephone, you can call the police. And at the very least, you can call out and say, stop that, let her alone. If he thinks there are more people watching, he may break off. There's always a chance, there's always a risk. I am the last one to say something. And also, if you feel you can't do something, if you feel too afraid, do not beat yourself up for that. Not all of us are heroes. I'm certainly not. I started to back off from a guy who was yanking his wife around and yelling at her on a busy New York City street in the middle of a crowd. And then another woman said, "Let's call the cops." And a bunch of us closed in on them saying, "Let her go." So that was when I felt I could join the group and be yelling and then go and call the police. But there are other times when you just feel afraid, and you have to measure your fears, your strength, and report what you can, always. And take notes. Take notes of what the guy looked like. Take notes of what the woman looked like. If they're in a car, and report it. Do what you can. Don't blame yourself because you're not a hero. Kel is trained as a warrior, and Lalasa has been training with Kel as a warrior too. The day after my best friend and I finished our yellow belt karate test, we were broken in on, assaulted, and robbed. And the guys in our karate class kept strutting up and down. You know, I get furious even to this day. They kept strutting up and down the hall and saying, "We wouldn't have let that happen." We were separated. One guy had me, the other guy had my friend. We couldn't see if they had weapons on us or not. And finally, our karate teacher arrived, and he told them to shut up. And he said, "You don't know what's going to happen or what the circumstances are or how you're going to feel." He says, "I was working in a theater, and a guy came with a gun and pointed it at me and told me to give him the money. And I did what my bosses told me to do. I gave him the money." And this guy at the time was a black belt karate guy. And he did what he was told to do, and the guy shot him anyway. And my karate teacher showed us the scars. You can be trained all you want to be, and it might not work. Mm-hmm. So be careful. Save your life too.
Mm-hmm. That's good advice.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does, definitely. And I also want to, okay, guys, whoever's watching, I'm just going to ask one more question before I go to all the questions that you guys have asked Tamora. My question is, you can see from that scene that you just read out, Tamora, that Kel is very strong. She's strong physically, and she's strong mentally. She has a strong will. And Lalasa is there. She's not, she's getting there as well. And a lot of your female characters, like Alana and Dame and so many others, are also very strong. What is your definition of a strong female character?
A strong female character is somebody who knows her own mind, somebody who will stand up for people in trouble, somebody who, whether it's with words or art or practicing law or physical action. My sister, who is my hero, has been a paramedic and an emergency room nurse since the late 1980s. She's literally saved hundreds of lives. That's the kind of person she is a real hero to me. But there are all kinds of ways to stand up for women, girls, children, men who can't stand up for themselves or each other. I'm thinking specifically of veterans, the way veterans are treated in this country, and that includes the male veterans, some of whom are very macho, and they say, "No, I don't need help," but they're not getting the care they need. And people have to stand up for them. That's what makes a strong woman. And a strong woman is a mother who looks after her children and stands up for them, but also takes the care to be straight with them and listen to them, but not be too easy on them. Sorry, kids. Didn't mean to ruin that for you, but sometimes a parent's got to be strict.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna start asking questions from the fans. But before I do that, I think Jenny Hitch asked whether the donations page is still open. Yes, Jenny, it still is. It's I will tell you how to get to it a little later. Okay, so now you guys have been upvoting questions, and there's so many, and the one that has got the most votes right now is from Rose Corcoran. I hope I said your name right. Hi, Rose. So Rose asks, will Kitten stay with the descendants of Dane after Dane passes away, or will she move on to the realm of gods and to the dragons?
I don't think so.
Oh, sorry, I read the wrong question. That question was from Morgane, but you can answer that first.
Yeah, let me finish this one.
Yeah.
As far as Kitten's concerned, it's nice to visit the realms of the gods, but it's really boring there, and there are a lot of people who tell her what to do and push her around, including her relatives. So she'll stay with Dane's family and look after them, and occasionally go wandering off on adventures of her own.
Okay. So that question is from Megan Milligan. So Rose's question is something she's wondered for years. What did Joran experience in the chamber?
I don't know. The chamber isn't telling me. The chamber doesn't tell me bananas. You know, in those sections where Kel is trying to talk to it, and the chamber says, "Nope, can't tell you that. Not gonna say." That's my conversations with it. It's a kind of a god thing happening.
Okay, doesn't even reveal its secrets to you.
Nope.
Okay.
And I tried.
All right. Okay, so Gabrielle D has a question. She says, "Hello, how are you?" Hi, Gabrielle.
Hi.
She says, "I hope all is well. As a person who identifies as asexual, I was wondering if Tris would also identify as asexual."
No, Tris doesn't. Triss's fate is ahead of her, and it's one that amuses the heck out of me. At some point, I may write an asexual character. I would have to get to know more asexual people and understand their lives. I've already been clobbered so many times for my representations of trans and gay people that I would as soon wait until I know a lot more. But I am not ruling out trying something. It's just Tris, I know exactly where she's from and what's going to happen to her.
Okay. All right. Speaking of your characters who are gay and trans, and but basically what I'm saying is that your stories feature a lot of diversity in terms of race and gender and sexuality, sexual identity. It's quite normal to see these people, doing all kinds of things. Did you deliberately do this in your world, and do you think it's important to feature all this kind of diversity?
I very much so. I think our real world is a diverse world, and if we want fantasy has always had the advantage of speaking directly to the heart and directly to the soul. I think more than any other branch of literature, fantasy is the literature that speaks to our spirits and enlivens and wakens our spirits and lifts our spirits. And for fantasy to continue to grow and reach out and reach wider and wider audiences, contemporary writers of fantasy owe it to their readers to write and to include the whole world, not just the small section of it that we know best, but the whole vast and wonderful milieu that's out there. People of all sexualities and people of all races and creeds because that's the sum of the human experience. And I think fantasy is made much richer by it. We're already here in America, we're branching out. Some of us, not me necessarily, well, I tried it with the Circle of Magic books, but others are going beyond the white Anglo-Saxon template in our writing. And we have more writers of color and writers of different national backgrounds publishing in the United States. And I'm delighted because I want different worlds in my fantasy and different cultures and different peoples, because it's way more interesting. I know what I grew up with. So we need more value in our buck for reading.
Great answer. And Rachel Brenner says, Tammy, I have loved your trans and gay characters. Oka comes to mind as a favorite, and you shouldn't sweat it if you can't please everyone.
Oh, I'll try to keep that in mind. It's really hard sometimes when you worked really hard to do something and then somebody brings up the thing that you realize, oh, I did that, didn't I?
Okay. Okay. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to alternate between the questions you guys are asking and some of my questions as well. So Maggie Cleary says, are there any stories that you wish you had cut from your books and that you wish that you didn't have to cut?
No, not really.
So you got everything you wanted in there. That's great.
Yeah, at that heart, I did.
Yeah.
Awesome. The Alana books, I would have liked more room to spread out. They feel a little rushed to me. But the fans like them just as they are. So I'm not going to touch them. I'll just keep writing new stuff with all the stuff I wanted to have in before.
Okay. All right. So here's one of my questions. Like you were saying just now that you have so many female characters in your stories, and they do get into quite a bit of trouble sometimes. And they do ask for help as well, or help or advice, and sometimes from men. They're not damsels in distress. Do you think this is a more accurate portrayal of women? And do you think that what do you think your readers can take away from this kind of portrayal?
I hope what they're taking away is that the divide that's been put between men and women for so many centuries is hurting us. It isn't helping us. I've learned an incredible amount of valuable things from men. My father, my college writing teacher, friends of mine, and I've learned incredibly wise things from women as well. My own mother, with whom I had such a messy relationship, my mother turned me on to so many great ideas, including feminism and history as well. And my humanities teacher in high school, my 7th grade English teacher who introduced me to fantasy, what we would term fantasy now, classical fantasy. So you need all the different kinds of people you can learn from. You can't do it alone. And if you only speak to and deal with and reach out to one sex or one group, you are stunting your growth. And the worst thing for the human mind is to make it stop growing. The minute we stop growing at any point, we don't freeze at that point even. We start to shrivel and turn inward. And that's the worst thing that can happen to you. You miss so much of the world that way.
That's very good advice. Okay, so I'm switching to a fan question now. Julie Mallet has the most upvotes for this question. And Julie asks, she says, I was always excuse me, I was always a huge fan of Kadar, the Emperor Major's nephew in Dame's story. I was wondering if you could give me an insight into what happened after the books to Kadar. He was such a great person.
Kadar, poor man, decided that, well, Callison talked her dad into agreeing that if she met the groom he chose for her and she didn't like him, that Jonathan would allow her to refuse the marriage. And so one foggy night on the southern shore of Tortal, a man in his boat got out of it and met a young lady on the shore, and they spent the evening in a hut there talking about their experiences and about what they hoped for from life. And at the end of the night, the man had got back into the boat and went back across the inland sea, and the young lady rode up to the nobleman's house where she was staying and met her father and said, well, he looks like he needs a bit of work, but I'll take him. And so for his sins, Emperor Kadar has the Empress Callison. And he doesn't know, but he's pretty sure he loves her. And she leads him a merry, merry dance.
Oh, awesome. Oh, okay. And Samantha Siebold says, hi Samantha, she says, I was wondering if there will ever be a story on Neil's daughter, or will there be more information on the young girl who sees the future?
I don't know as yet. It looks like after Triss's book, which is Lightsbridge, which is currently set for 2020, Hiram's book got a little longer than I had planned, and is now three books. You could see all three there. My editor at Random House here in the U.S. would like me to go back to younger heroes, and the only way I can do that for a while, and there will be short stories. Don't despair immediately. No rending of T-shirts or nothing, okay, gang? There are short stories in the works, and if you go on my Tamora Pierce fan page on Facebook or on my Tumblr page and put ideas, I'll put them in consideration for short stories. It looks like I am going back in time with my younger heroes to, in all likelihood, the time when a bunch of mages got together and decided that the immortals were too big of a pain in the butt to allow them to share the same lands, and so they are going to exile them to the realms of the gods. So that's where those kids' stories are going to be set. 200 years before the Becca Cooper books.
Wow. Okay, you might be answering another fan question, which is from Morgan Milligan, and she says, I wonder if we will ever see a new female hero in the Tartar world.
I think that's a yeah.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
That's a big yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna switch over to one of my questions. You guys just keep your questions coming, and I'll keep reading them out. Well, my question is, there is sometimes a tendency for authors to fall into the not like other girls trope, which is, I'm strong and resourceful, not like all these other silly, flighty girls. But in a lot of your stories, you kind of turn it on its head, as in whatever sort of person you are or you choose to be, that's totally fine. Did you do this deliberately?
Yeah. I did the not like other girls thing when I was in high school, and it occurred to me that as a feminist, I was against my own sex, which is really stupid if you think about it. I mean, our natural support is one another. Mm-hmm. If we turn against one another, if we tear at each other, If we fight each other, then we are fighting ourselves. And I thought that's bad.
Mm-hmm.
So I write against it and I talk against it. And I try not to preach against it, but sometimes I do. Because other girls, other women are our own best allies. And as long as we continue to snark at other women, to attack other women because our boyfriends decided to go after them, what? The guy didn't have a will of his own? Come on, people. He was the one tied up with us. If he went after another woman, it seems to me it's his fault, not hers. That sort of nonsense has to go. We have to learn who our natural allies are, and we have to stop undercutting one another. Because as long as women fight other women, then men can just stand back and laugh at us because we're doing their work for them. Divide and conquer.
Yeah. Which brings me to a next question, which is that your novels are basically fantasy novels, if you want to put them in a genre. And this is still a quite male-dominated area. So how were your first stories, which feature like major female protagonists, accepted when they came out? And do you think that people are more accepting of female protagonists in fantasy genre nowadays?
They are more accepting of. I never can tell how to answer this question.
Mm-hmm.
When they first came out, I was lucky in that I wasn't particularly alone. I was, except for one other writer in the young adult field, Robin McKinley, with her Hero in the Crown and the Blue Sword. Her Hero and the Crown came out a year before Alana, and Blue Sword came out a year after. She always does female protagonists. She went away from women sword slingers. A woman named Barbara Hambly began publishing male-female pairs, which is really interesting if you want to read a good relationship between a male character and a female character, where inequity is not so much of an issue. Barbara Hambly's early fantasy novels are very good. Later came Elizabeth Moon, who wrote actually an asexual character, Paxenarion, the hero of Sheep Farmer's Daughter. So I was part of, and of course there was Mercedes Lackey with her Queen's Heralds books. So I was far from alone, and nobody said much of anything, except the librarians and the booksellers did what they call hand sell my books, where they would find parents looking for something for their girls and shove my books into their hands and say, you have to give your daughter this. And they kept me alive for 20 years. And then by then I was publishing the Circle of Magic books with Scholastic, as well as the Tortall books, and people saw 12 books on a shelf, and they were saying, wait a minute, where did she come from?
Yeah.
It just moseyed along quietly. These days you have a lot of science fiction girl heroes who are action heroes, cops and rebels and spaceship pilots, and that's wonderful because science fiction needs more female heroes, and my favorite writers have them. Fantasy, you have a lot of princesses, brave ones, very brave ones, who are out to fight for their people. You have a lot of wizards who are out to fight for their people. Female warriors, not so much. It's awful lonesome out here.
Well, I think with fans such as your fans, people are really hungry for good, strong female protagonists who can do stuff, because you know, women and girls every day, they go out and do stuff, so they want to
Yeah,
see people who do that in their books as well. So I
there's
think
this. Barbara Hambly has a splendid book called The Ladies of Mandragin. It's set in a kind of Renaissance culture. The barbarian chief is brought to this town where all the men have been taken by the all the capable men have been taken by the Wizard King to work in his mines. All the toadies have been left behind, or those who are incapable of fighting, and mostly the businesses are being run and managed by the women. And this is a culture of women who are kept veiled and inside the home. And now they're having to take the fishing boats out. They're having to run the markets. They're trying to work the forges in the blacksmithy shops. And they are learning that they are not such weak things after all. It's a wonderful, subversive book. And I recommend it to anybody.
okay, let's get back to the fan questions, because they keep coming in.
Sorry.
No, that is me. Okay, so Rachel Brenner says, asks, would you ever consider a book about a daughter of Dane and Numair?
Right now I am working on a short story about actually one of Alana's sons, and their oldest daughter, not Callison, oh gosh, I've forgotten the kid's name. Anyway, I do know the kid's name, but she breaks away from her parents, and there lies the story. So that will be, I'm slowly but surely doing this short story collection. It'll probably be around here in the US around 2018.
Okay. So the next question is from Dorothy McHugh. Hi, Dorothy. Dorothy says, thank you so much, Tamora. I love Briar's use of birth control in Empress. What kinds of responses have you gotten to Briar's promiscuity / use of Doublet? It seems more planned out, intentional than Elaine giving Alana or Cal amulets just in case.
I'm sorry, run that past me again.
So she asked. She says she loves Briar's use of birth control in Empress. So the question is actually a sort of a two-part question. First is, what kinds of responses have you gotten to her use of birth control? And is it more planned out or intentional than Alana or Cal just using amulets just in case something happens?
Well, Briar is a planner, so he would rather be prepared than have a little surprise come along 9 months later and have to pay child support, if not raise the child themselves. Because in this world, you either pay you either pay child support, or if the birth mother does not want to raise the child, then the local law will force you to raise the child. So Briar is extra careful. And have I gotten any feedback about my use of birth control? Yeah, from parents saying, my kids told me that they've learned about birth control from Tamora Pierce. So I don't have to give them the talk. And I'm there, well, maybe you should anyway, in case they've missed something.
Yes. Well,
but that's one of those other things I believe in firmly, is that one of the things you should talk about, even in fantasy, which isn't supposed to be real, although I think it's better if it's real, is birth control, is about sex, because it's all out there. If it's all out there, then you should talk about it.
Sure. Which brings me to one of my questions, which is, there is a very refreshing and open-minded attitude to sex and sexuality among your characters, especially the young women. And the way love and sex is portrayed is quite real. For example, your characters experience, like Alana, she experiences fear and indecision and, all these roiling feelings inside you, which you do when you're a teenager. Was this so?
Even when you're older.
Yeah, any time in your life, actually. Do you think it's important? Well, you did say it is important to show healthy examples of this way of thinking in fiction. And also, do you think that it's important to show this kind of thing and not resort to labeling women who are open about sex, things like slut, for owning their own sexuality?
Having been labeled as a slut in my time, yeah, I think it's important to strip off the labels, throw them down the trash, burn them, and then toss them into a deep, deep pit and cover them over. I think labeling other women who are free with their bodies, who know what they're doing and respect themselves and take care of themselves and don't get anybody else, give any harm to anyone else. I think that's all we can ask of each other, to be responsible and to do what we need to do without being judged. Other people can't live our lives for us. And if that makes us happy and we're careful, then it's nobody else's business.
Totally right. Okay, so guys who are watching, keep your questions coming, and please do keep upvoting questions. There are so many good questions here, so I'm trying to read the ones with the most votes first. Okay, so the next one is from Keita Fishing Cat. That's a very cool name.
Yeah.
Hi. She asked, or he asked, what happens to Cloud when she reaches old age? When she inevitably passes, does she also go to the realm of the gods?
I don't know. I think Dane would kind of put her foot down. It would depend on what Cloud thought about it. She may or may not like the realms of the gods. You know how picky she is. I think it would be up to her.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna ask Vampiric Mastermind's question. She has been waiting quite a long time. So her question is, in Wild Magic, we learn that Numair lived in his own tower near Pirate Sloop. But later, in POTS, in the Protector of the Small series, he lives at the Palace with Dane. We don't ever hear his tower mentioned again. Will that be brought up in the upcoming books?
I don't know. I think it does in the short story, since I think that's where Sarah Lynn escapes from. Sarah Lynn, by the way, is the name of their older daughter. But he still owns the property, and they still go there, especially during the summer, because it's kind of beastly in the palace in the summer. So nice summer vacation down by the ocean. You can go swimming, all that kind of good stuff. They'd want to take the kids down there. But that also depends, of course, on where Ma and Da are being sent to by the king lately. So it's a good summer place, and Numair does own the lands around it now, so it's all his. The rooms they have in the palace, those are just the rooms ceded to them by the crown, because Numair is sort of unofficially the royal family enchanter and also a teacher in the school for pages and squires, and on the payroll for emergencies.
All right, a question from
Dane. Dane is also on the royal payroll for emergencies.
Okay, question from Annie. We're kind of jumping all over the place. Annie asks, I love the circle coming back together in Will of the Empress after being apart, to see them deal with more grown-up issues. Will we ever see more of them individually and together? More like Will of the Empress would be incredible.
I'm not sure. The sales numbers for the Circle books have not been very good. And I have a feeling that Triss's book may be the last for a while. Also, my own career in other areas is getting a little stuffed, and I have to retreat from some areas. So we'll see what happens. I am not letting go of the Circle entirely. I still have other ideas. For one thing, they've got to find the Duke's missing heir. See, you know the Duke, he's kind of testy, and he actually has a son that he had before Gaspard and Franzen. That was called Darren. The Duke disinherited him when Cole was 16 because they were way too much like each other. And now he's looking at Gaspard, who's admiral and doesn't want to rule Emelon, and Franzen, who would very much like to rule Emelon and would be lousy at it. And he's thinking, maybe somebody has to go out into the world and find Cole. I would like to do that.
Yeah, really cool. Okay, I'm going to just keep asking, reading out your fan questions because there are so many of them. Okay, so Raquel Belkin asks, at what point while writing the Trickster books did you realize that Dove was the Promise Queen and not Sarai? Also, thank you so much for your books. I look back at your characters, especially Cal, when I need to remember that I can be strong.
Oh, thank her for me.
Thank you, Raquel.
As I got to know Sarai, I realized she was beautiful and tempestuous and the kind of queen that a whole nation of people could fall in love with. But I've been interested in history since I was about 5, and I've learned a little bit about kings and queens, and just because somebody's flashy and good looking and looks great on a horse and makes everybody want to cheer doesn't always mean they're a good monarch. Now, the two exceptions are the two characters that were part of my basis for the Queen in the Trickster books, Queen Elizabeth and Catherine the Great, both of which were beautiful and looked great on horseback, and their countries loved them. But they could have been easily been beautiful, lousy queens like Mary, Queen of Scots, who also looked good on horseback. So I got to thinking about Sarai, and I was thinking, this country needs somebody a little less excitable and a little smarter. And there was Dove. And I'm looking at her and I'm going, okay, kiddo, we got to work this out. And fortunately, Sarai took it out of my hands.
So I'm going to go back to one of my questions. We've been talking a lot about female characters, but your books obviously have a lot of male characters as well. And there are boys and young men who read fantasy novels such as yours. And how important is it, do you think, for these young men and boys to experience stories that feature young male characters that they can identify with, who treat the women characters with respect?
Well, it seems very important to the ones who've talked to me about it. They really like it. They really like the way I write male characters, and they really like the relationships that the male characters have with the female characters. I think too many men are taught that they have to give up some portion of their soul to have a friendship or a romantic relationship with a woman. You see all these boys in schools hitting each other and giving each other a hard time because the other boy is looking at a girl or talking to a girl, and they're saying, oh, he's in love, oh, he's doomed, he's never coming back, oh, he's talking to girls, or to the boys who seem somehow effeminate. the things they do to those boys, it's like the devil popped up in their classrooms. And here are boys having straightforward friendships or rivalries or discussions with girls who are having the same thing back. And one of the other things I hear from those guys is, especially the older ones, is that their girlfriends shoved my books into their hands and said, read these first. So for those who have the courage to read what I write, or dads who picked up what their daughters were reading, which is hysterical because it was my dad who got me to read fantasy and science fiction and historical fiction. They're the ones who pick up the bug from their daughters' books, which I think is a nice turnaround, especially since my dad thought my books were okay, but he liked Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman better. By the way, I've lost your sound.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I muted my microphone because I didn't want to interrupt you.
Okay.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask a question from a fan. Amanda Pacchiotti. Amanda says, hi, Amanda. Amanda says, Alana is always surprised and overwhelmed when a friend does something kind for her. Is it like she doesn't feel deserving of it? And where do you think this stems from?
Well, look at her family. Look at the way she grew up for her first 10 years. If you want to learn something deep about somebody, look at the setting they were raised in. Her father did not care about her. Her mother wasn't there. She would have been happy to have been there, I'm sure. Tom loved her, but Tom's idea of expressing love was a punch in the shoulder. You know, he wasn't exactly Mr. Cuddle Bunny. Coram loved her too, but he was brusque and he wanted her to stand up and stand on her own. And he was right to feel that way, but nobody really gave her affection and gave her props just for being herself. And so it was very hard for her to learn to accept affection until she finally learned to accept it from a disreputable source.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So next question is from Jennifer Kuo. Jennifer asks, she says, thanks for doing this, Tammy. And she asks, would there be a book one day similar to Tortle and Other Lands for your Emmeline universe?
No, sorry, Jennifer. Tortal and Emmeline are completely different universes. They have different rules of magic, which is the same as saying different rules of physics, different rules of energy. I would never want to cross them over. But for one thing, I go to Emmeline when Tortal is getting to wear on my nerves, and I go to Tortal when Emmeline is starting to wear on my nerves. So I would never want to cross my vacation spots. They do different things for me, very much different things. I like them just the way they are.
That's a good answer. Okay, now we have a very interesting question here from Elena Granter. Elena says, I'm a librarian, and in the community that I work in now, there are a lot of parents who are against fantasy. Do you have any good arguments for why fantasy is as valuable as historical and realistic fiction?
Well, for one thing, if the characters aren't realistic, if they don't behave in a realistic way under stress, and it doesn't matter if the thing roaring down on you is a train or dragon, you still have to develop strategies to get out of the way. People still have to react in the way that human beings react to certain kinds of stimuli, no matter what they are. If they don't, if they aren't real in some aspect, the readers will just, teenage and middle grade readers are the toughest critics in the world. Kids in general are. If they don't like your book, if they get a couple of pages in and think it's stupid, they will throw it against the wall. And that's the end of that book. You have to be realistic in your characters. They have to react like real people. A lot of us draw on real world history and real world cultures as the basics for our own, and some of us go even further. I have 2 shelves in here full of cookbooks that I use for my books, and I don't cook. They're for my books. I research my animals in books of real zoology. I go from real world maps to create my cultures. So theoretically, at least, my land management is good, and the trees fit whatever country I've based my own countries on. And something this may take me a little while.
Good.
Something I used to say a lot and still say if I did more speeches is that more than any other literature that's out there, and I touched on this before, fantasy is the literature that deals with the really deep subjects. We take issues that make people very nervous about covering in children's books. Issues like slavery, which is still practiced in our world today. Issues like war. Issues like captivity, holding girls captivity for who knows what. We enslaving other peoples, and we deal with them at a remove so our readers can think about these subjects and at a safe distance and decide how they feel about them. We also address the tough subjects, the subjects that people won't even speak about by those words anymore in our North American and European cultures. Subjects like honor, subjects like people here now won't say do the honorable thing anymore. That best they'll say try to do the right thing, which is a very milquetoasty way to deal with something that is deep within our makeup. Trying to do right by those who are weaker than we are. It's something that gets discussed in the churches and then forgotten for the churches and synagogues and forgotten once we're outside the door of our sacred buildings. Fantasy discusses sticking up for those who are weaker than we are. It discusses standing up to tyranny. And these are all things that come from history. These are all topics that come from world history and world events today. There's slavery in the world today. Fantasy handles the subjects that are so hot, most other literatures don't even want to touch them. And we handle them at a remove so that your child or your teenager or even you aren't reduced to tears on your bed at the middle of the night. We discuss them so that you can read them and think about them. Put the book aside and think about them and go, but that stuff happens now. And how do I feel about that? And that's important because too many people nowadays avoid the tough questions. And they're questions that fantasy asks, and fantasy doesn't let you get away from them.
That's a good answer, and I think you're totally right. And I'm going to move on to a slightly lighter question right now, which is from Amanda again. Amanda says, my question is about Alana, Dane, Cal, and Ellie. What characteristics of yourself did you give each one? and what characteristics of each do you admire which do you admire most?
Well, Lana is difficult because she inherited, I based her on my younger sister, the paramedic and ER nurse. And Kim had the attitude, and Kim has the heroism to go into a burning plane or to go into a burning car or to go into a room where the family doesn't want you to put those tubes in their loved one, and you have to do it while other people are keeping them from breaking your head. But Kim and I do have a couple of characteristics in trouble, and one of them is sheer pig-headedness. I could always recognize it in Kim, because when she stood and her lower jaw comes out and her ears go back and she says, "No," that's it. Game over. You may as well pack up your stuff and go home, because you're not going to get her to budge after that. And I admit I am a bit difficult in that area myself. That would be Alana. Dane, I wrote at a point in my life where I wanted to do a series. Alana was more about who I was at 12, or who I wanted to be at 12. And Dane was more like who I was at the time I wrote it, which was 30-something semi-recluse who dealt better with animals than people. And actually, I've gotten more like Dane as the years go on. When people ask me which of my characters' magics would I take, I always say Dane, because I would love to be able to heal the animals I've helped or rescued and haven't been able to help. And Ollie and I didn't get on so well. I can safely say there is nothing of me in Ollie. I discovered, in fact, that I was far more like Ollie's mother than I had ever realized. And she burned my bacon. If you said yes, she would say no. If you said, "Can't you just give somebody a direct answer sometime?" she'd look at you and flirt, say, "Why?" "Oh, Mother, you know it's not good for you to have a direct answer. It just excites you." And I don't have much in common with Ollie.
Okay.
Crazy. I got my vengeance, though. There's a short story collection out there, Tortal and Other Lands. I got my vengeance. So I feel better about Ollie now. I helped her through childbirth. Triplets.
All right. Okay, I was going to ask, okay, I'm just going to quickly ask a question about Ellie since we're talking about her. And this is from Savannah Witten, who says, "I really love the way Ellie's spying abilities worked and were written, and I was wondering how you went about researching information gathering and what resources were particularly useful."
I read a lot about historic spies like Walsingham and Sir Robert Cecil in Queen Elizabeth's court. That helped a great deal. And the nonfiction books on those guys are very instructive, although they were more gatherers, although Walsingham did do work in the field. And Cecil's son also was a spy master for a while. My best book for the attitude of spies, well, two of them, by John le Carré, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, and the sequel, Damn Me Your Brain.
I'm trying to think too, sorry.
The sequel to Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. The one with the...
Schoolboy, the Honorable Schoolboy, is that it?
No, that was a later one. I mean, the next one to star George Smiley. Honorable Schoolboy came a couple decades later.
Sorry, I can't think of it now.
I can't think of it either. But those two books, the direct sequel to Tinker Tailor, is Smiley's People.
Okay.
That's it. That teaches you an awful lot. Le Carre himself was a spy, which was very helpful. I have squirrels in my attic, and they're having Friday night rock and roll night.
Oh, that's what it is.
Yeah, the thumpy, 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 thumping. Yeah, that's them.
Girls in your attic. Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
I have quite a fun question here from Rose Shahi. I hope I'm saying it correct. Hi, Rose. She says, "Hi, Tammy. One of my friends is a fashion historian, and we are both huge fans of your books. We both want to know more about the clothes in the Circle universe. Could you share what countries or time periods you base the fashion of the universe on?" Thanks.
It would be hi. It would be the Silk Road, medieval Silk Road at the time of the medieval Silk Road, medieval Middle East and Central Asia at the time of the Silk Road. I was getting there. I've got uh, quite a few books of costumes and fashions from. It was a lot harder to get the non-European ones, but I got them. And also the Dover coloring books were useful. So for Sandry's Homeland, I went with Russian type fashions from the medieval period, but Emelon and Sotat and those countries all around the Inland Sea are mostly the Middle East, around the Mediterranean.
Great.
Some Roman armor. I don't know how that leaked in.
Okay. So next question is from Rachel again. Hi, Rachel. Who asks, will there be more stories where a faithful Pounce accompanies the heroine?
I am sure there will be. It's not like I have any control of him.
Okay, yeah.
He likes to go wherever he wants to go.
Right. I'm gonna ask. We're guys. We're kind of running out of time here. We have about 15 to 20 minutes left, so I don't think I can get to all of your questions. But I'm gonna just pick a few, which I think are a little bit more interesting. Well, not all your questions are obviously very interesting, but I'm just gonna pick a few. Okay, so I found one here from Morgane. Morgane asked quite an interesting question, and she says, as the mother of 2 disabled children, I was just wondering if you will ever be including any disabled characters in your future books.
I've got one that I've been working with. Again, it's a matter of wanting to be very careful and getting it right, not doing any unknowingly condescending things. But I've got one girl that I had in the first draft of the Harem book, which is now 3 books. And she's actually one of George's people, one of his spies. And I like her too much because even though she's disabled, she is a very good observer and a very good reporter. So I would like to do more with her. And I may transport her back 400 years and see what I can do with her then.
Okay. There is someone here who doesn't actually have a question. Tara Z, hi Tara. She says, honestly, thank you so much for talking about being assaulted and not being ashamed if you can't do anything to prevent it. As I'm taking my sexual assaulter to court, I reread Kel's books for courage to face him in court and stand up for myself.
Thank you.
Good for you, Tara.
I'm honored.
Cool. All right, so I think I have to quickly wrap things up because we're scheduled to shut down at 10 a.m. So I'm just going to read out one more comment, one more really quick question from a fan. And I'm so sorry if I didn't get to all of you guys' questions. This is like a really quick and short and fun question from Dorothy. Dorothy McHugh says, Your Highness, how do you feel about fans calling you Queen Tammy?
No, 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 don't call me queen. I work for a living.
Okay, awesome. All right, so I'm going to have to ask one last question, which is, so my question is, Tammy, you've been so great in supporting this cause, and putting a stop to violence against women seems to be something that's quite close to your heart. Can you tell us why you are working with us and why you're supporting this cause?
I'm working with you and supporting this cause because I think that women who have been harmed, women who have been assaulted, need all the help they can get. And you people are incredible for recognizing that and standing up for your sisters and for everyone who needs help. I believe this to the bottom of my heart. Anyone who pitches in is worthy of great praise.
Thank you so much, Tammy. And it's with people like you who help us out that we get to spread the word. Yeah, so with that, it kind of brings us to the end of our session, and I just want to say thank you so much, Tammy, for answering all these great questions, and thank you, fans, for asking so many questions. I'm so sorry that we didn't get to go through all of your questions. I'm sure that you will be able to get to Tammy another time, and we'll try and do that for you. Maybe in the next session, Tammy will agree to be with us. So now I did say that I was going to tell you guys about all the goodies that we're giving away. So as we mentioned earlier, Tamora's goodies have all been snapped up from our Indiegogo page earlier this week, but we still have plenty of awesome stuff from all the other authors that you guys might be interested in. We have things from Claudia Gray. We have signed first editions of her books, including Firebird, the Firebird series, and Lost Stars, which is a Star Wars novel. We have signed and personalized limited edition leather-bound copy of Kelly Armstrong's Brazen. So awesome. And Carrie Arthur has really been wonderful and given us a whole quality goodie bag full of all kinds of swag. Okay, so this is how you do it. There we go. Here are the links. Go to is.gd/r4p Indiegogo IWD 2016. And you can get all your hands on all the goodies there. If you only have PayPal, no credit card, you can still donate. You go to is.gd/r4p Razoo IWD 2016. You can get in. You can still get stuff there and donate there. You can get an ebook copy of On the Loom of the Fates by Gwendolyn Alexander, who is a New Orleans-based poet. So please do give generously. All funds go towards the Pixel Project's Celebrity Mail Order Pixel Reveal campaign to help end violence against women. We have a lot more author sessions coming up. If you want to learn more about that, you can go to our Read for Pixel and our other Read for Pixel sessions. You go to is.gd/Read for Pixel. All the list of authors are there.
Right.
And if you want to learn more about violence against women, what you can do to stop it, please do visit the Pixel Project's website, which is pixelproject.net. So all that's left for me to say now is thank you, everybody, again. Thank you so much for your questions. Thank you for being patient and waiting. And thank you so much, Tamora. Hi, Tim.
Hi.
Hi, thank you so much. And that's it from us. Bye, everybody.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Take care. Hope you had a good time. How many people do you have?